Welcome to the Examined Life of Gaming. Since you've probably already seen a ton of GTA 5 reviews that focus on the characters and the story and the new features, I'm going to do something a bit different with this review and get really in-depth with the mechanics of the game.
GTA 4 was a pretty great game, but it did have its share of flaws. The gameplay was solid and the world was hyper-detailed, but the story was an obnoxious grind with too much overblown dialogue. The characters were exhausting and the missions were tedious. GTA 5 tweaks a lot of the smaller gameplay issues from 4 and tells a much improved story. It's not perfect though. I still don't like the way Rockstar tells a story. No matter what the situation, it all boils down to driving for a very long time while two characters talk. Almost nothing of consequence is ever said, and it never seems to go anywhere. The characters are mostly more interesting than in GTA 4 because they're more flawed and more proactive. Nico was practically a saint because all he did was react to things done to him, and he was the most noble character in the story. The characterization of the new characters falters sometimes because they're a bit schizophrenic, especially Michael, who is all over the map from Max Payne to Robert De Niro to Fanboy to Walter White. Franklin is still the same weak character from every game since San Andreas, the straight man who sighs and shakes his head to remind us that the characters in this game sure are zany. You don't really have a good sense of character in this game. At one point, Michael is talking to his therapist and says, "Sometimes I feel like me, sometimes I feel like someone's controlling me," and your reaction is kind of, haha, but that's a good point. It makes it more obvious that you have no control over the events of the game and makes your connection to the characters more tenuous. The skill system from San Andreas makes a return to diversify the characters a bit. I find it underused, and Rockstar didn't really commit to it. There is no noticeable improvement in your abilities as your skills increase. Driving skill only affects how you control your car in the air, flying skill reduces minor turbulence, and I can't even tell if weapon skill does anything at all. Most of the changes to GTA 5 are mechanical.
GTA 4 took some flack for its car handling physics, but I'm going to be the guy that says I actually liked them. They weren't realistic by any means. A car doesn't squeal wildly out of control when it goes around a gentle corner at 20 miles an hour, but they had a high skill ceiling. It was something you could get very good at.
GTA 5 missed an opportunity to have car handling start out similar to GTA 4's mechanics and improve as you improved your skills. But instead, the car handling starts out perfect and never changes. I was surprised at how much I liked Franklin's ability. Michael has gun battle bullet time, Trevor has rage mode, and Franklin has car bullet time. It's very fun to use Franklin's ability to shoot your car precisely through small gaps, or to make a quick turn into an alleyway at top speed to avoid pursuit. However, since the car handling is so easy for all characters, Franklin doesn't seem like he's that much better of a wheelman, even though his role in the game is the getaway driver. If the skills actually had more impact on the gameplay they relate to, then the characters would feel more specialized. Another effect of the improved car handling is that vehicle choice is much less important. In GTA 4, there was a world of difference between classic American muscle cars and modern European sports cars. If you wanted something durable for ramming, you'd go for a heavy car, but if you wanted handling, you'd pick a sportier vehicle. Since all the cars in GTA 5 handle about the same, what's the point? Using muscle cars in races or driving situation in GTA 4 was a dicey proposition because of how soft and wobbly they were, which is a realistic choice given the complexity of old American cars. If you don't know what I mean, look up the term live rear axle. It's terrifying. In GTA 5, I used an old-ass 70s style Vigero most of the time because why not? The handling wasn't that much different from a fucking Bugatti Veyron. GTA 5's car handling is better in the short term, but after you've been playing the game for a while, the huge variety in cars seems pointless. I'd get all excited to drive a new car, and surprise, it was exactly the same as all the other cars. The helicopter control is the opposite of car control because it feels equally terrible for all characters. The turbulence mechanic makes choppers roll back and forth while you're flying, and trying to compensate for it can easily make the roll much worse. The turbulence effect for planes is a subtle rumble effect that's very immersive, but the helicopter effect seems needlessly annoying. GTA 5 boasts a number of new anti-frustration features as well. Most obvious is the ability to save anywhere from the phone menu. I can't give them any points for this because it's a feature that is long overdue and it's been possible in Saints Row since 2006. The checkpoint system is vastly improved over GTA 4, although you might as well just say it has a checkpoint system now, since GTA 4's checkpoints were as rare as a dry winter in Oregon. You can also skip an entire mission if you fail 3 times in a row. I'm certainly not going to use it because it's kind of insulting, but GTA 5 does suffer from occasional aggravating bullshit syndrome. My favorite new feature is the removal of time windows for missions. If you get to the mission start point at the wrong time of day, it just fast forwards to the appropriate time. Weapon selection has been made easier with a radial switch menu that slows down the game for both weapons and radio stations. You can also hold every gun at the same time like in Red Dead Redemption and switch between them. I don't like that you never lose your guns and always have every single gun, usually several of each type at the same time. It's not really any less realistic than holding one of each type at the same time, but it makes the combat in the game feel cluttered and busy. When you're driving, you can press square or X, that's the Xbox 360 X, not the PS3 X. Why don't we just call it blue? You can press square or blue to change weapons. In GTA 4, you would cycle between the 3 possible in-vehicle weapons: pistol, SMG, or thrown device. In GTA 5, you cycle between up to 4 pistols, 1 SMG, and multiple thrown devices, including tear gas. It gives you the option to throw tear gas out the window of your car. Never mind that tear gas doesn't even do anything when you're not indoors. It does even less when you're in a fucking car. The environments are noticeably more attractive than in GTA 4, but this is mostly just because San Andreas is a prettier and more varied place than Liberty City. Otherwise, the graphics and effects are basically identical to 4. There hasn't been a hardware leap, but the size of the game means an 8 gig install on both 360 and PS3, which is to be expected since it's so late in the console cycle. I'm playing on PS3, which performs pretty well. I imagine that the 360 version looks a bit worse and probably has severe slowdown at certain times. The PS3 version still doesn't support full HD. You can get upscaled 1080p on HDMI, which looks fine, but component maxes out at 720p. That's what I did my capture with, since the HDMI output on PS3 is a proprietary encrypted signal. When played in HD, you can tell the game needs some texture filtering. Road lines look very blurry and stretched, beyond 50 feet or so, which is a clear sign that they had to sacrifice anisotropic filtering to get the game to run on current-gen hardware. My only real complaint with GTA 5 is the changes made to the combat. It is a large step back from GTA 4, which is extremely disappointing as there are still far too many gunfights in the game. One of the interesting things about GTA 4 was the application of ragdoll physics. Rockstar Games have been licensing a soft-body physics middleware from Natural Motion called Euphoria. In GTA 4, and to a lesser extent Red Dead Redemption and Max Payne 3, enemies would stagger around when shot, and when they fell over, they weren't always completely dead. GTA 5 sacrifices a lot of those effects, though. When an enemy dies, the screen flashes black and white for a second, which is kind of obnoxious and also removes the ambiguity. The weapons in GTA 5 are less impressive than in the GTA 4 trilogy, and the effect on combat is profound. Weapons feel much weaker and overall quieter, and they're more accurate. It's a natural change. If you make the guns more accurate, you have to make them weaker, because more bullets are going to hit, at least in theory. Believe it or not, accuracy in this kind of game is not a good thing, and I can tell you why. First of all, it's difficult to hit moving enemies with an accurate weapon, because you can't rely on the spread of the weapon to compensate for their speed. This also makes the game much harder with auto-aim turned off, because when less bullets hit, the reduced weapon damage really sucker punches you right in the junk. With auto-aim on, combat is insultingly easy. You don't even have to look at the screen. The flick targeting system has perfect accuracy and always centers the reticle at about neck height, so your involvement with combat is to hold down the fire and aim buttons and flick the right analog stick periodically. With auto-aim off, the weakness of the guns and the accuracy makes it much harder than GTA 4. GTA 4's auto-aim system would stick itself to one enemy's center of mass, and you could adjust to aim at their head for a quick kill, their arms to knock their weapon away, or their legs for a stagger. You could still flick to change targets, but it didn't behave the same way as in GTA 5. GTA 5's flick targeting system is from Red Dead Redemption, and just like in that game, it is far too forgiving. Whereas in GTA 4, the flick targeting was used if you wanted to suppress a large group of enemies, in GTA 5, you just use it to slaughter people wholesale. It is very hard to put the differences into words, but if you play both games back to back, GTA 5's targeting vastly oversimplifies the gunplay. There is no middle ground though, since the game was clearly not designed to be played with the auto-aim off, and getting a bead on a target is very difficult because the default reticle is a tiny gray dot and is practically invisible most of the time.
Overall, the changes to the game's combat system are all negative. In that regard, I don't think GTA 5 improves on GTA 4 at all, and it takes several steps back. If you think that isn't a big deal, it is.
You do one ye olde metric shit ton of gunfighting in this game, even if you opt to do the heists the stealthy way, and they go off without a hitch. GTA 5 finds some bullshit excuse to throw you into a protracted gun battle with cops who had no idea where you are, or mercenaries who had no way to find you. They just show up, and you kill thousands of them. The amount of combat in this game completely undermines your choice of stealth or not stealth, and none of it is all that fun because of the wonky control and underwhelming arsenal. I said earlier that GTA 5 improves on all the little things, but that's also where it goes wrong. The fist fighting system in GTA 4 was very cool. You had 3 types of attack, a block, and you could counter attacks in a number of cool ways. For no reason I can fathom, GTA 5 completely does away with that system. You have 3 attack buttons still, but the attack is randomized and there are no combos. Instead of block, you have an auto counter button, which only has one counter used over and over, instead of several depending on the type of attack used and the weapon held. You can't shove people anymore either, which is how I got practically all of my kicks in GTA 4 and Red Dead Redemption. Why the fuck did all of this stuff get removed and simplified? Seriously, why? Because it was too complicated? How can that be true when it was entirely optional? In the Ballad of Gay Tony, there was an awesome Fight Club activity that took advantage of the cool fighting system. It too was optional, but if you wanted to master the combo and countering system, it was there. After every mission, your scored on your performance, just like in the Ballad of Gay Tony. When the mission ends, you're stuck looking at the score screen for several seconds before you can continue, which breaks flow. Even the presence of the score screen really takes you out of the game. It's a real immersion killer. Why didn't they just save the screen for the mission replay mode? There are small optional objectives you can complete for additional points as well, but they don't tell you about them until after the mission is over. It leaves you saying, well, I guess it would have been cool to assassinate the target in this way, but it's too late now. What you don't get after every mission is money. Most missions have no reward at all, and it makes a lot of what you do seem pointless. Even if there's nothing to spend it on, the money is like a high score list. It's a visible tracker of progress, and it makes you feel like you get something for doing the mission, even if all you do is move the story forward. The mini-games and activities are also lacking rewards. Thankfully, you're no longer pestered by friends to hang out. You still have the opportunity to, but there is no reason for it. In GTA 4, your friends would offer you special abilities, like car bombs if you hung out with them. In GTA 5, all of the activities and minigames exist only as time wasters, or to improve the skills you don't use. The bottom line, though, is that the more I play GTA games, the more obvious it is to me that they have basically no originality. That sounds harsh, but it makes sense if you think about it. The characters and plot points are all borrowed from, or if you're being forgiving, homage to, movies and TV shows. GTA 5 rips off the opening scene from No Country for Old Men, just verbatim. That scene just happens in GTA 5. Just like GTA 4 took characters and plot from Heat, specifically the bank heist, GTA 5 does the same. The armored car heist from Heat is ripped completely off. It's embarrassing. Nothing is changed about it. They stop the armored car with one vehicle, hit it with another to knock it over, and blow the door with explosives. Then the guards come out, deafened by the blast, just like in Heat. Instead of being an establishing moment like in Heat, where it shows how professional and badass the crew is, the heist is padded out with a huge action sequence where you mow down several dozen cops. I'm inclined to forgive all these stolen set pieces and plots because it's like being able to play a game version of movies or TV shows that never had a game tie-in. I guess what I'm saying is, it doesn't bother me nearly as much as I think it should. There are also general game design problems that do bother me. The GTA series has had its share of bullshit game design for a long time. I'm getting really tired of putting up with it, and they haven't made any effort to improve it. One of the most common mission types is the scripted chase scene, where you're supposed to drive after someone until you reach a cutscene. Unfortunately, the way these missions are framed, it seems like you're supposed to actually catch them, but you can't actually catch up to them because their car is on rails. This leads to an infuriating sequence where their vehicle moves way too fast, turns on a dime, and can't be derailed by gunfire ramming traffic or weather. This type of mission is extremely common and has been a pain in the ass since GTA 3. This mission type is boring, since even though it claims you're chasing somebody, you're basically just driving in the direction of a cutscene. And the mission is also bullshit. You are affected by traffic and rain and the handling limitations of the car the game forces you to use, but you can easily tell your target isn't. They just float around on the road ahead of you, and it is maddening. It hardly even counts as gameplay, and too many of these missions pad out the running time of every GTA game. Combine this with the drawn-out sequences of driving and boring dialogue, and the overall effect is that a weighty percentage of GTA 5 is an outright chore to play. The multiplayer mode offered a potential way to frame some of these missions without the obnoxious story. Unfortunately, multiplayer mode is clearly meant to be played with friends. In my experience, even if you're in a free roam server with a lot of people, it'll be very difficult to start a job with more than 1 or 2 players. It's also a bit mechanical, since you're not doing the job in the same world as everybody else. You get transported to a small pocket dimension with just the players in the job. I was hoping the world would be more persistent, but free mode exists only as a hub world. Basically, you can drive to the jobs physically, instead of launching them from your phone like in GTA 4. Instead of being more immersive and making you feel more like you belong in the world, it makes it feel less immersive because your map is now cluttered with tons of blue mission hub icons. There's a passive mode which is supposed to protect you while you're not in the mood for griefing, say if you want to shop around for new weapons or clothes. But it doesn't work while you're in a car, and it doesn't protect you from cars. GTA Online so far seems to be lacking in features. You can rob the same liquor store or 7-Eleven over and over for a pittance, or you can do TDM missions or races. There are no heists in the game yet, or they're just restricted to endgame content. Either way, that's a letdown. After finishing the story mode, all I wanted to do was heists. Character creation mode is pathetic, which I'm sure you've already heard. You can't actually create a character, it's too random. You don't have enough control over what you look like to really make an avatar of yourself. I spent about 20 minutes messing with the creation system to create a character that looked almost normal, but when I started playing, I ran into several dozen other identical characters, differentiated only by wardrobe and hat. And for some reason, every male character is incredibly short. So GTA Online isn't as stellar or revolutionary as I was hoping, but the basic formula, Grand Theft Auto but online, is still as fun as it was in GTA GTA 4. The same can be said about the rest of the game.
On balance, I really enjoyed my GTA 5 experience, so my final score for the game, including the multiplayer component, is an 8 out of 10.
On my scale, a full 10 means everybody should own it, and a 1 means nobody should own it. Giving GTA 5 a 10 out of 10 is ridiculous. The game will still not appeal to those who aren't fans of the series and the genre. There are also enough persistent problems with the series that Rockstar can't or won't fix, so a 9 is also out of the question. I know you won't believe me when I say GTA 4 was a better game. I know this because I've told my friends the same thing, and they think I'm out of my mind. But having played GTA 4 an obscene amount, I promise you I'm not making any of this up. It was a mechanically elegant game, slaved to a miserable story. GTA 5 is a quick and dirty game, and I derive no mechanical pleasure from playing it. GTA 5 doesn't feel like a game you can get better at. Unlike GTA 4, which brought me back time and time again just to mess around, GTA 5's focus on the narrative means it just plain won't. A story isn't something you have to experience more than once. Textured gameplay is.
That being said, Grand Theft Auto 5 is still a fun ride for people like me who are fans of the genre, but find the Saints Row games increasingly ridiculous. See you next time.